There you go.
Okay. Here's some announcements I compiled. Does anyone have any business that they'd like to talk about this week, or any like discussion points?
I just have to make an announcement about a simulated emergency test that our IT department is doing in mid-May.
Right during Hamvention.
The 18th and 19th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good day to go to Hamfest.
Yeah, when we have a minute, when we come back to that, I'll fill you in on plan for mitigating the results of that. So.
Okay. Actually, okay, so this is more of a business item. I'll move it down. Which case, barring nothing else to talk about, we should probably check back in on the Grape. Grape 1.
Okay, can I have the screen?
Sure.
Let's share. That's the one I want. Looks like it's working. This is the plot of the magnetometer on the eclipse day. And we're dancing around with averaging it. We don't average the temperature. It pretty much covers the entire plot. So this is a 1 minute average for each second, or for each data point. I'm thinking about kicking it up to 2 minutes to get rid of more of the fuzz, because it's obviously not moving very much. But this is the 3-axis magnetometer plot. And there were some noises about making it 2-axis and eliminating the z-axis. But I have a real problem with that, because you notice here the magnitude is about 47,000 nanoteslas, and the z-axis kicks you up 5,000, so it's 10% of the vector length. I don't understand why you would want to do that, but
yeah. So John, really, I think the best thing to do is to show all 3 axes separately, because they each tell you something different about which way the currents are flowing overhead in the ionosphere.
Okay.
So because of Ampere's law and the curl, most of the currents that are flowing that are going to affect the magnetometer are flowing horizontally in the magnetosphere or in the ionosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to look at the 2 horizontal components, the X and the Y, first. The Z component would potentially be sensitive to currents that are flowing like, basically the geometry works out that the currents in space usually don't affect the Z component too much. So the effects that we want to look at from space are usually in the X and the Y components.
Okay.
And one of the things, and when you look at these the magnetometer data, there are 2 things that make up the magnetic field. One is the Earth's internal magnetic field generated by the core, and the other are the currents that are flowing around out in space. So there's an internal portion of the field and an external portion of the field. Space physicists, which is what Hyomin and I are, we care more about what the external field is doing, what's happening in the ionosphere, what currents are flowing on in space. And so that's one of the reasons we actually tend to look more at these small changes versus the larger background field.
Okay. Is there any other than being able to look at it, advantage to plotting the three independent and then magnitude of this magnitude as well, or does that distract from what we're trying to do?
I think you could do the magnitude as well.
Okay.
You can so there's a few different ways sites that I've seen this data presented. I'll often see the three axes in different colors on one panel, and then a panel either above or below that, they'll have the total field.
Okay.
And you can see that you're probably going to have to put the X and the Y component on a different scale than the Z component.
Yeah. Yeah. Because one's like 24,000, another one is like 12 or something like that. But yeah. But that's 2-axis version.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess when you say the 2-axis,
That's
the
X and Y.
2-axis, yeah. So you instead of calling it 2-axis, you could call that the horizontal magnitude. The horizontal field magnitude.
Taking notes here. And in red, you can see that my temperature moved a whole 0.2 of a degree during the day. So the ground was warming up in the sunshine.
Did we?
I like
I
the
was-
pause during the eclipse.
Is
Yeah,
I think the temperature is a bit distracting. I think that the purpose of the temperature is to make sure that it's not causing a problem to the magnetometer readings. So if we only have 0.2 degrees of a,
well, that's part of the diagnostic of having it. Because if it's really, well, if you're seeing the heating from the sun every day, like Bill Engelke was talking to me about,
yeah,
you want to be able to detect that. So
I
we may end up doing 2 graphs, one with X, Y, Z, and then maybe a magnitude and temperature. Because you could correlate then the temperature shift, if there is any correlation, to the magnitude shift of the magnetometer, which is part of the diagnostic.
Yeah, so I was wondering, do we know how much of a temperature change is really going to have an important effect on the magnetometer readings?
I do not know what the TempCo is of the magnetics in the magnetometer.
Okay.
And I'm not sure they published them yet, because when they originally came out with it, they said there was the 0 TempCo, which then we proved to them it was more of a very good temperature sensor. And then they said there is a TempCo, but I have not seen the spec for it yet.
Yeah. And I know
But 0.2 of a degree over 24 hours is pretty darn good.
Right. I agree with that. I think that is good. And I guess where I'm going with this is I wonder if we can adjust the temperature scale in such a way that if it's probably not something you should worry about, it just shows up like at the bottom in a fairly straight or slowly varying line.
Yeah, well, I was going to do it between 0 and 30, which means it would basically be a straight line and not give you much information. This is the full exploded dynamic auto scaling that Kung did with the temperature scale.
Yeah.
So,
Can I show you something on my screen for a second?
sure.
This is a SuperMag website, and I actually hope that we can eventually get our data into SuperMag because they aggregate magnetometer data from all over the world. But this is their default plot for showing the magnetometer data. So they have they're showing 3 components. They show the north component, the east component, and the Z, which is vertically down. And they've actually background subtracted the whole field.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that it's in 3 different colors. So I think for us, so I think this is where I'm getting at putting all 3 on the same plot. I think their north and east would be like our X and Y. And their Z would be like our Z, or it should be. But this, I think we don't have to do any background subtraction for ours, but I do think that maybe putting our Z on a separate scale from our X and Y probably is going to make sense.
Okay, I'll work with Kung on that.
Yeah, but this is a really good website, in terms of like, if you're like, how should magnetometer data look? This is a good website for that sort of thing.
Okay.
Because this is run by people who really know these things.
Can you put that in the chat so I can get a reference to it?
Sure. They also have, chat. Okay. So they also have a good, I think, good explanations of what each of these things mean.
Hmm,
So this website's very informative. Another website I want you to be aware of is something called the, if you search for IAGA magnetometer manual, IAGA magnetometer manual, Google search. There. The International Association of Geomagnetism and Aeronomy, and they publish a guidebook here. They have a number of guides. They have the IAGA Guide for Magnetic Measurements and Observatory Practice. And here, I'll put this in the chat too. So this is a very good book that's available in PDF format. If their website works. Worked the other day. Let's try this again. This one. That explains how to set up and run a magnetometer station, and it explains, I think there's another copy over here. Yeah, Guide for Magnetic Measurements and Observatory Practice. I'll put this link in the chat since the other link doesn't seem to be working right. I have to get it with just the. There. They go through and they explain, the different parts of the Earth's magnetic field, where the different disturbances come from. They talk about requirements for building an observatory site, the different definitions of coordinate systems. So this is a really excellent, so here, this explains we should really be defining our coordinate system the same way they talk about here. So the magnetic field of the Earth is a global vector field. 3 components of the vector F are needed to describe the field. And so they show them here. So the X is the north component of the vector, Y is the east component, Z is the vertical component, positive down, and then H is the vertical and is the horizontal intensity. So what you're doing when you're doing that, the magnitude of the 2 horizontal components, John, you're actually computing this H vector here, the magnitude of the H vector. So that's why I was having you do that.
okay.
Yeah, so you can peruse this book. I think it has some really useful background to help you understand. Here's some plots. It looks like they explain what you might expect to see in the X, Y, and the Z components. And this might give you a little better understanding as to what we're looking for and why we're making some of these decisions plotting.
Perfect.
Nathaniel, I'm not seeing any active stations on Supermag.
What I had to do to find that, I went to Supermag. I went to I go to line plots. Yeah, I clicked line plots and then I chose.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the Supermag site's awesome because they pull in all this stuff and they actually have algorithms where they'll look at the data and they'll try to make sure it's rotated correctly and interpolated correctly and make sure everything's like set. So this is, and you can see this is a very well developed data portal. So that's why and it's widely used by physicists. So that's why I'd like to see our data sets eventually be able to get into here. But if you go to that line plots and you hit select stations, you can then.
But there doesn't seem to be any current data.
Current, where are you looking for current data?
I'm putting the date to our current date, and
You
there are
know,
no stations showing up.
I don't know,
There may be a lag in the
I
upload.
So
don't, yeah,
it's certainly not a real-time site.
no, it's not really designed, this is a research,
This is
really a
where
research
we
type of
would put
site.
our data, but
Yeah,
not something
so
you can check
I
real
think
time.
with, the way I see our data processing scheme going, our data first goes to the University of Alabama server. And the University of Alabama server, that's like the first gateway where we have control of being able to set our metadata. You know, potentially we have control over the entire system. But then eventually that data is probably going to get pushed upstream to something like this, where may not have as much control over it right away, but it will be in a more permanent archive format that's in the same place as all of these other networks. And so it makes, so for the end science user who's not actually trying to run a magnetometer, for the end science user who's just trying to look at all of the data together and figure out what's available, this is the sort of place they'd end up going to actually use the data. He's on the steering committee here. Andy Gerard is the chair of the steering committee. Great. Is that helpful, John?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I understand what I'm doing now. That's scary. I've been kind of tied up with our ham club's tower replacement. It's actually going to happen now, right? We're tearing the ham shack completely apart. Got a crane coming in on the 22nd to take all the towers down, and then they're going to rebuild the building and blah, 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 blah. So I'm slightly distracted. See, this week, actually, I'll hand it over to Bill. He can do more with tell what he was doing than I could probably tell.
Well, very briefly, just because it's old business.
Okay.
There were some stations last week, 9 of them not uploading FL Digi. Did you get a chance to look into that?
I put out, it was actually down to 8. There's a couple of them that responded.
Should be down to 7 now, as of.
Yeah. Oh, the number 4 is going to be coming offline because I'm shutting it down here at case because of the shack remodeling.
I got, 2, node, 1013 and node 1026 are up now. One of those was my mistake. I had given him the wrong cron tab entry. But as of last night, that was NI5F.
Oh, okay, good.
26. He's uploaded fully since April 4th. And the other one in
What was his node number, Bill? NI5F? What was the node?
1026.
All right, thank you. That's important because we want to get his Grape 1 back. Thanks.
Yeah, he's in Graceville, Florida, and NI5F. And the other one is in Nikiski, Alaska, 1013. He is also up now. So by my count, we're missing 7 nodes uploading. We'll have 25 uploading as of tonight.
That's good work because I'm sure it's not easy to troubleshoot these things remotely.
We have our ways now. We're uploading the logs, the log files, so I can tell who's uploading and who's not.
Nice.
This is Jerry, KVGL. Mine was one I'm not uploading. I did redo things and then I had checked with John to see if he knew it was doing it. Apparently I'm still on the list of not showing up.
What node are you?
1016.
1016. Let me go to.
Let me look.
No, 1016 is uploading.
Good. That means,
Yeah, I've got data from you.
all right, well, good. Redoing the procedure. I got the indications that everything was back to normal because when I restarted G2C, it came back in the 24 mode meg or 24-hour
Okay,
slot. So that gave me a clue, at least. Maybe I got it right. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're uploading, Jerry.
All right.
Jerry, did you get your magnetometer online too? Because I know that was one of your goals.
Yes, it's been online since before the eclipse.
Okay, and it's uploading too. Great, because I know Rachel Frisell is going to be interested in that too eventually. So
And then there's a question in the chat about node 1025. AA8K. Let me check that one.
Note 25 is uploading. No clue. I have no idea what's in the zip file, so.
Yeah, it's uploading.
Magnetometer data, right?
Um,
Well, it's a zip, so I
Oh,
let me download the data and I'll check. Hang on.
yeah, I haven't, no feedback since install, so I don't know if it's operational.
Just a minute. Yeah, there's a magnetometer CSV file.
it's more than 800 bytes.
Check. Yep, it's 86,000 lines, so looks
Yep.
complete.
It's working.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Bill, Jerry again. Would you check mine and make sure that my magnetometer is showing up? As I said, Rachel was interested in mine here at the site.
You're at 1016, right?
Right.
Yeah, about half the number of stations have sent me their PSWS info file. So the list of people who haven't, I'm going to send that out again and ask that they send that to me so I can fully populate. Basically, it gives me your node number, your call sign, and lat long elevation, which Gary needs for his map and Rachel needs for her research. So once I
Jerry,
get that,
Jerry, did you do something different the last 3 days? There's 3 files that are showing up that are uploaded as logs.zip.
Oh, yeah,
Those-
that after I got the email from John, I went back and I had not followed the procedure quite correctly when that update was put out back on the 24th. So I went back through and redid everything again and followed it and like I said, it looked like to me that the update was then running and everything. So yeah, it was off about I'm not sure what day I did that. Well, I think it was about April 30th when I email you, John, saying I redid all that.
sounds about right. It's all
Yeah, I
become
see it's 3
blurred.
files.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to have both those files now, John, right? There's a
Yeah,
logs.
what we're doing is initially we combined the logs into the data zip file, but now we're separating them so that eventually we can start deleting the log files off the server and save a little space.
Oh, okay. Very good.
So, but we're downloading them now so we can check the logs. Once we're confident the logs are okay, we're going to start deleting them off the server. So
Yeah, I
that's
see
the
that.
reason for separating them. And also we don't download as much when we're trying to check them.
So we've only been downloading those for about 5 days, is that right?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And Jerry, your magnetometer data is good for May 1st. It's complete, so it is downloading.
Okay, thank you.
That means you're magnetically inclined.
Well,
Do
Yeah.
you stick to refrigerators?
No, unfortunately, I don't. Well, the other interested party, of course, I told her that the available data would not be showing up for a while we could get to, but is Dr. Scove. She's interested in seeing what is happening with my magnetometer. I'm one of our VIP committee people.
Ah, good.
Those magnetometer plots will be generated automatically. Once we, I don't know if they're doing that now or not, John.
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're not. The G2 plot does not contain the mag plot stuff yet.
Once we're finalized on the format.
Yeah, once we figure that out, we may end up doing 2 plots, one of it separate XYZ and then one of total magnitude and temperature.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the way we're going to go, because they all have something different to show.
Right.
So that would be 6 plots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plots then. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, no, keep going.
Okay. Like I said, I've been kind of tied up with school stuff here, and this is the second reading day and finals start tomorrow for a week. So things are settling down and getting crazy all at the same time. Bill, do you have anything else?
No, I think the auto start appears to be working, and
Yes, that works great.
and I also was able to restart my remote Grape 2, but this is all experimental right now, so I would rather not release that to the world.
Yes, yes. And for those that are interested, if you do not have to restart the system, you simply log out of Pi and you log back in as Pi with the password being Pi. And I put that in a couple of places, but it's Pi for name and password. When you log back in, it should auto start in its own window, the G2 console. So that's one thing that we're having everybody try to do.
Yeah.
And I really should get a final copy of the distro and make a zip file of that, because I think we're getting closer enough now that with all these little tweaks and command line.txt and config.txt and all those things being set up special for this, we really need to archive what we have right now. So I'm going to work on that. Put that
John, do you keep a record of the instructions that you send out? Like that one email was pretty important. Is it also then on the server somewhere?
It's not on the server. Like I say, I've been sort of flying by the seat of my pants for the last couple of months, so I'm a little bit disorganized.
Well, maybe ultimately at some point we could have a summary of those.
Yeah,
special
that
notes.
sounds like a good thing to do.
Okay.
The
Thank you.
place to do it would be to create a Grape 2, or where there is a Grape 2 page, but like we did with Grape 1, if we consolidated everything there. So at some point.
Oh, okay. So once I get that together, Gary, I'll fire it off to you and I'll have you
Right.
have you give me input on to what kind of format you want to see and all that kind of stuff. We'll get that straightened out.
We could also have, if there's plans for a map of active stations, I could have the daily log report feed into that, or have it emailed to you automatically, or we can talk about how that might be updated. Or
Yeah, it'd be nice to get that automated so Gary doesn't have to poke at it every day.
yeah.
Yeah, at least once we get the email started, we could figure it out. But yeah, there would be a nice feature. We'll send it to one of the Hamsci email accounts or something like that, just so it's. I hate to tie too many things to an individual person because we all get sick or go on vacation, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, a good plan.
So I think that's all for Bill, correct?
Yep.
Kung, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Any updates?
Um, well, nothing in addition to what we want to discuss regarding the parts, the magnetometer parts.
Yeah, like I say, it looks like we're gonna be making probably 2 plots, but I will talk to you this afternoon about that.
Yeah,
That should
sounds
be pretty
good.
straightforward. That way we don't have to have switches or different plot, but anyway, we'll work on that this afternoon.
Yeah, nothing else for me.
Okay, back to net, Rachel.
Can I make one more comment on the magnetometer?
Sure.
I think one thing we should meet with Yeoman on this. I think we should really come up with a standard of how we're pointing the X component on the installed magnetometers, because I'm not sure that we have that very well defined. And I think that's a really important thing to do, because there are a couple different conventions. There's pointing it towards geomagnetic north, there's pointing it towards geographic north. If we don't point it, I think with citizen scientists, it's very likely that people are going to kind of get it in the ground as close as possible, but things, they can get bumped or things like that. I think ideally we have some sort of algorithm in place that can, do some checking on it to either make sure it's oriented correctly or automatically figure out how the data probably should be rotated.
Well,
I think we should have, what's that?
I'm sorry, the install instructions tell you to take the Y vector and zero it, which means you're pointing to magnetic north.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a relative reference, but everybody then gets the same reference.
Okay, so it's saying to point the Y vector to 0.
Correct.
As
Okay.
close as you can get it.
As
Yep.
close as you can get it. All
Yep.
right, so actually that's really helpful. So then we do know for sure that our X component is supposed to be the one that is pointing towards geomagnetic north. And then the other thing it helps us when we're making those plots, that means on average the Y component really should be 0. And if
Correct.
it's not, so we could possibly compute a daily average of the Y component. And if it's not 0, that could be like a red flag.
Within a window, yeah, because the Y does vary.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but so I don't know if we have like a 1-day average, a 10-day average, a 30-day average, but over some amount of time, it should be zeroed.
Once
I
upon a
have-
time, I remember somebody said it's possible to do that with mathematics. So
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's true. So
But that doesn't work because the Y is going to keep changing.
It doesn't vary that much, but it does have a component that changes daily. So depending on when you calibrate it is where you're going to grab your 0. And it is really touchy because the total vector by my house is 53 to 55,000 nanoteslas.
Mhm.
And the magnetometer has a resolution of about 3 nanoteslas. So it doesn't take hardly any movement to move at 100 or 200 counts.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and
It's
don't
really
have your,
touchy.
But,
you have
but
a
maybe one of
shovel-
the things that David is pointing out too is like the actual geomagnetic pole is moving very rapidly.
Yep.
Which I think Phil Erickson really showed in his talk at the Hamsci workshop. So we probably don't want to, it probably is good for us to kind of have like a baseline for each station to know whatever that particular.
Yeah, I'm wondering why we're using magnetic north as our 0. It's a lot easier to orient to true
Actually,
north.
that's not true because the diagnostic I have gives you a real-time readout to allow you to set the Y-axis to 0.
Yeah, but you got to see it in the shack.
That's what you have a
When
wife.
I'm putting it in the ground, I'm not in the shack.
That's what you have a wife for.
I
did
think
a lot of running back and forth between the back of my lot and the shack.
I think this whole topic is slightly more confusing than we'd hope it would be.
Right.
And
Yeah, let's
Yes.
shelve this one.
I think we're gonna have to table it, but I think that maybe we should definitely talk to Kyoman and maybe even involve someone like Jesper Yarlov who runs Supermag and has to deal with, you know, he deals with aggregating data from thousands of magnetometers from tens of different networks. So he has to figure out how to standardize all of these different things in a scientifically useful manner. So I think we should kind of revisit our procedures for doing that, but I think that'll
Yeah.
have to be done at a future
I
time.
Yeah,
did,
the
I
other
did
reason-
email Won't Yeoman with the 2 different plots and asked him to give me his opinion on them, and I have not heard back from him yet. It's been a couple of days, so he obviously
Okay.
does his email every day.
The other reason
Yeah.
I question that is that or another question is that I've got a magnetometer that's oriented flat, not end on the way you have it. And do we have a way of rotating the components?
We do not in the current software, because we're assuming you're going to be using our setup and our, putting it in the ground 3 feet in a tube.
Yeah, I think what we're going to want to do is we're going to, again, kind of want a 2-step process. I think there's going to be, one step where we just save the recorded data that people report. We don't change it at all. Like we have our, base, the raw data. And then there's probably going to be another step that we implement on Bill's server where we have some sort of checking routine that can either take into account some sort of correction parameter or coordinate vector rotation after the fact. And then that data might be what people ultimately use, but we still always have the raw data to go back to.
But X, Y, and Z has a very distinct fingerprint, and it would not be hard at all to determine in software if you want to do a rotation.
Right. I agree with that.
I don't think that's going to be a big issue.
Yeah.
You have to make the mechanical orientation. As long as you keep it fixed, we'll be able to figure it out.
Okay.
But that's what I got Kung working on. There was a couple other things, but we're getting closer to having a good solid release, but at least the stations are up and running. I'm extremely excited about the fact that the rollout went as smooth as it did. It could have been a major train wreck. Thank God it wasn't.
So while we're still on the Mac, I just wanted to point out a few things on my installation. I've got an older one that, as I say, it's flat to the ground, not end on. It is not being read by Grape 2, so it's not connected.
Correct.
So the older one cannot be read by it?
That is correct, because the address for the local and remote Tempco on a certain rev of the boards are the same, they conflict. So it won't work.
Okay. The second part being 2 feet under doesn't make sense in this environment for 2 reasons. One, our frost level goes below that. It's generally considered to be 6 feet here. Second, we have bedrock. And it's
Right.
going to be hard to get it even 2 feet down.
Yeah, mine is 3 feet down, and I could take it farther, but I didn't have a drill bit extender long enough to take it any farther.
Yeah, so I'll see what I can do, but
Our frost line is supposed to be at 3 feet, but I'm on the sort of the edge of a hill by a creek, so I can imagine that's probably not true where I have mine. But
now I will admit that with climate change, it's probably not 6 feet anymore.
Right,
That's what's considered to be where you put pipes
right,
in
right.
this area. But I'm also still questioning how temperature dependent really is, and also the reason that the temperature, doesn't the magnetometer itself have a temperature sensor in it?
No, it does not.
I thought it did, but
He said I'm aware of.
yeah, but we should be able to compensate it for temperature. A little more
Yeah,
complicated.
once
but-
you know what the Tempco is and actually try and measure it,
Right.
that could be backed out as well, but we have the raw data to be able to do it if we want to go back and post-process, so we're in
Very
good
good.
shape on
Yeah.
that.
Something for the future. First is to collect the data.
Something for another PhD student. Okay, I think that's all I have, Rachel. Back to net.
Right. I do want to check in quickly with Bill. If there's nothing else on Grape 2 stuff.
This bill or Bill Engelke?
Okay, sorry. On the website being affected
Maybe
by
You
related
just call me by call sign. I answer to that, A before EJ. All right, May 18th and 19th. The University Computing Center is gonna do a simulated emergency test. They're gonna simulate some kind of an attack or whatever, take all the systems down, isolate systems, and run backups to simulate a recovery from backup and whatnot and whatnot. So I'm thinking that probably uploads coming from Grape ones and magnetometers that are connected to our system probably won't work. I'm going to work up a little Python script that I can send out to all users where you'll be able to, it'll use your configuration you already have, but it will allow you to specify a date of an observation you want to re-upload to be able to recover from that. So that is one thing. Another thing, I will show my screen here if that's okay. It'll only just take a second. Somebody is sharing. Okay, maybe I should be able to do it now. Okay, all right. There, all right. We've added a feature. Once again, this applies to Grape 1s and RX 888s. Down here, there's a feature where you go in and edit your station and you can opt in. This is defaults to turned off, but if you turn this on, you will get an email notification if your station does not upload on a given night.
Nice.
Good.
We got a cron job that runs at 8 p.m. All uploads should have completed by that time. And if you have opted in, you'll get an email if your station didn't upload. Now, I will say that at first, there may be some false alarms on this because we have had a couple of cases where the watchdog somehow got messed up and quit part of the way into the processing uploads. The data got uploaded, but it didn't get processed, and it looks like a failed upload, but it isn't really. But we're putting in some corrections to catch errors that in the past have not watchdog offline, and we think we've made a dent in that. So only time will tell. But anyway, so that's what I had. I just want to let the group know about that. That's all I had. Back to Ned.
Bill, when is this simulated test to happen?
May 18th and 19th.
Thank you.
Joe, you'll be at the Hamvention.
Yes, I won't be able to do very much about it at the time, but there's nothing I can do anyway other than just clean up after it, which we'll do the following week. So.
Okay. I think that is most of what we have to cover then. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to talk about?
I actually have a Grape 2 station coming back to me. So we'll have to figure out somebody. He only ran it during the eclipse day, and I don't, well, anyway, it's coming back, and hopefully we'll be able to redeploy that somewhere. I think I will attack Gary on that one. I mean, reference Gary on that one.
Yeah, we certainly had loads of people who
Yeah.
wanted one.
And as you all probably saw, I had to send out an email saying, please don't tweak the system on your own, because I've had 5 cases now where something went bad, and it's a lot of work for me to figure out what they did and try to undo it remotely. So,
John, am I able to report to our friend in South Carolina that his station worked?
I don't know his node number.
Okay.
So, no, not yet. I'll probably work on that this afternoon, trying to get out the other nodes that have not responded with the info file, so I can get that all completed and then get that to Rachel and to Gary. to the one where I know where like 15 or 16 of them are now, although two of them, one of the nodes is node 1003, and I know where that is, but I haven't been able to get that person to send me the data file yet. But I guess Nathaniel's server isn't talking to the outside or something. I don't know. Kung's working on it.
For my server,
Yeah,
my Grape 2.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just messaging Kung. I think you should be able to log into my Grape 2 now, and I don't know why you couldn't yesterday, because it wasn't an electrical problem. But try logging in now.
It was a picnic. Problem in share, not in computer.
Yeah. No, earlier this week, I had some issues with the circuit breaker tripping. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, are you on? Have you have whole house power thing in yet?
Yeah, we have that now. But a really interesting story about that too. We got that put in, and then we had a couple like 5-hour power outages. I was like, yes, we can test it out. And I found out that all my computers shut down on there. And it turned out that the generator was outputting the electricity at 63 hertz, and my UPSs didn't like that. So even though the generator was running, all my UPSs stayed on battery power because the frequency of the incoming AC was too high. So the technicians came out, adjusted that, and so now it should be correct.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, I was very puzzled. So is Jonathan Rizzo. I'm like, how did I spend this much money on this thing? And
it didn't
why?
work.
Hey, John, I got a question about that PSWS info file that you want.
Yes.
Does that need to be sent to you since we did that update? It now has new lat long, right? That was recorded differently?
Correct.
So do you need that from just this last week?
I have not sent out the email about that again. I did that as part of the install instructions. And I got maybe 5 people, it's actually about 10 people, 15 total responding. So I have to go ping that again now that I'm starting to get a little bandwidth, but.
Okay, I didn't know we needed to send that to you. I will.
David, is the South Carolina station in North Augusta?
David Caston.
David Caston. Because
sorry.
the station is uploading. We're getting data from
Good.
that's node 1017.
Thank you. I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Cool. Well, joy finals, everyone. I think you're unaffected.
That sounds like an oxymoron.
Yes.
Yeah, like that sounds very optimistic, Rachel.
That's what students are all about. They don't have to take the finals.
That brings up old, not so pleasant memories.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know if you guys knew, but WWVB is on a low signal output now.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, how long, Dave?
Boy, I think we're looking at a month, probably more. I went out there last Friday. I took photos. I haven't gotten them up on the web yet, but I got to walk amongst the top hat on the ground. It was really cool.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
What's the
Yeah.
problem? Is it the antenna?
It was a mechanical failure of one of the tower braces that's holding the wire. It's one single wire that gave way, and the whole corner fell down, so they had to lower the whole thing down.
Oh my.
And take it offline. So it's only got about a 37 kilowatt output compared to its 70 normally.
Okay.
So if you're not getting WWV, that's why. But they're reassessing everything about that, the top hats, because I didn't know this, but those top hats are 62 years old.
Oh my gosh.
They're the original wires that were put up in 1962. And so they replace, certain parts at certain times, but they haven't done anything to that top hat in well over a decade, maybe even closer to 2 decades. So things, entropy.
Yeah,
That's the rule. So,
I did pose the question, Dave, are they in the same condition that Arecibo was?
well, I guess so, maybe, probably a little bit easier to put up
Arecibo is a
those
bit
top hats
more
than it is.
corrosive. Yeah, Arecibo is more corrosive environment,
Yeah,
That's
you
true.
get the ice loading in Colorado.
right?
Well, this was a wind event. We had wind speeds of 70 to 90 miles per hour. They actually closed down Interstate 25 right there at Wellington in both directions because it was so intense. So,
Wow.
and it
Yeah.
happened, just to note, this happened on GMT time, I think the early morning hours of the 7th. So this was before the eclipse that it failed.
Aren't you people subject to jet stream intrusion?
I think the biggest winds that we get are the downslope, what are called Chinook winds. And
Right.
so this was not necessarily a Chinook wind. This was all these fronts moving across that have been wreaking havoc for a while, So, but yeah, the winds we get along the border, right? I mean, it's just 2 miles, 3 miles to the east of the rise of the Rockies. So you get some pretty intense winds here.
Yeah,
Thank
I think that the one that went down, Dave, is that the old WWVL antenna?
It was, no, this was the south array.
Right, but that was repurposed from the 20 kilohertz.
No, actually, the north array was the original. So it was the repurposed, I think. I'll check again with Matt.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the north array was the original and it held up. But they're both pretty old. They're both
But
put in.
no, but I'm saying that I think the south array was the 20 kilohertz one that was repurposed
Okay.
to 2060. Anyway,
So
I'm just
yeah, they
curious.
both
It's
went up pretty darn close to the same time.
right.
So
They would have.
the only thing that really had to change was the variometers in the helix houses because of the frequency difference.
Right. Just so you know, my watch does seem to be syncing as long as I get the right orientation.
Yeah, so is mine. It set last night, so
Yeah, but
I'm good.
we're out in the deep fringe here in New England. So
Well, there's a good experiment to try, what orientation do you lose WWV on your watch?
right.
When it's not facing west.
All right. Quick update from here,
Thank
and I'll
you.
get some photos up on the WWV website, hopefully over the weekend here.
Cool.
Nice. Okay. I think that that's everything we have. And just about on time.
Thank you.
Cool. 7-3 is all.
Good.
7-3.